James Creedon, revved up, ready to go. Media Watch, good evening, sir. A French news website is allowing users to bet on the news.
Yeah. There was a bit of a gap. There was a gasp earlier, actually, when this was
Bet
mentioned.
on the news!
At a news conference upstairs, there was people were like, because I think it's just shocking. People find that shocking because it is ethically
A division of
quite against
someone
journalism.
doing Tic Tac, sort of like giving the odds and stuff, like to do with a race course,
It's kind of crazy.
33-1.
Yeah,
carpet,
but this is that where it's going to go? Now, luckily in France, it is very regulated. All of this. Some would say even too regulated. The European Commission has criticised France for sort of centralising
how would this look? Betting on the news,
Well, I'll show you. But just very briefly, in terms of the context of all of this, it's very regulated in France. La Française des Jeux has a monopoly on anything to do with betting online, and it's restricted, generally speaking, to sports. So this website called Betty.news.
Betty.news.
And I know you have a dog called Betty.
Our dog's called Betty. She's got nothing to do with it at all.
So Bet obviously is a play on
Sure.
betting, right?
Sure.
And news, self-explanatory. And the guy behind it is a former news director at L'Express news magazine. He was also one of the co-founders of BFM TV, which is the most watched rolling news channel in France. So he has a big background in managing news outfits. Interesting that he would kind of choose to take this particular route. But in any case, he has been, I'll tell you kind of what he's been saying later, but just to show you how it functions, he has said, Guillaume Dubois is his name, that we're going to steer clear of sensitive issues. So it's just going to be stuff that is maybe not as concerning as maybe, I don't know, sensitive issues such as terrorism or big political questions. But they were allowing bets on the outcome of the European elections, for example, and questions such as will Mbappe leave PSG before the end of the season? Will Paris City Hall get rid of electric scooters? That kind of idea. And
This is possibly the thin end of a wedge, though, isn't it?
Well, I think...
Sorry to be sceptical.
It could be a slippery slope because, generally speaking, journalism and news content, there are ethical questions that should underpin the journalistic practice. And if you start allowing viewers or news audiences to bet on the outcome of events, well, it's getting very commercial, first of all, and monetary interests are taking a priority over everything else. Plus, betting is addictive.
Sure.
It's known to be, and it can get people...
Because in the UK, obviously, I mean, they bet on everything in the UK,
Right.
including the elections, the outcome of the Royal Baby,
Right.
the outcome of the Champions League final coming up this weekend. They bet on everything. But betting on the actual function of the news or what happens in the news, it seems, I don't see how it works. It's a strange one.
Well, first of all, just concretely speaking, it's not using actual money. The way it works is you get credits on this web. When you sign up to this website, you get B coins. I think it's a play on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
B as in the letter B coin, and essentially the 20 top people at the end of the month, prize money of €1,000 is divvied out between them. So it is very much, I suppose, limited in terms of how off the rails it can go in terms of people losing money and whatnot. It's not going to go completely bonkers. But I would say, ethically speaking, it's kind of a slippery slope if we start down this track of betting on the news.
Okay, should we bet on what comes next? Environment news. You weren't betting on that one, were you? Malaysia sending waste back to countries of origin, and this includes France.
Well,
who would have bet on that one?
Well, there you go. It's interesting because this is kind of a trend now, and indeed, our own Jessica Le Mesurier in New York did a report recently on the city of Philadelphia and how which has a big recycling industry, but they were actually exporting a lot of the goods that came out of the recycling process unusable, and it was going to China, and China has now been saying no, we're sending a lot of this back to you, or we're not taking it anymore. Now Malaysia is following suit, and 450 metric tons of plastic waste is being sent back to 12 developed countries, including the US, the UK, Australia and France. And one of their ministers, Yo Bei Yin, basically said developed countries well, he mentioned the UK, but it's the same with France and others, always prioritise recycling, and its people follow suit, but they do not realise these wastes are dumped in our country. He also called the companies involved in importing that waste traitors. Essentially, it's a case of, I suppose, deal with your own waste. We're not going to make an industry out of this anymore.
Seems
and I would
fair.
say fair enough,
Yeah,
to be honest.
I'd agree with that completely.
In the sense that we get to really have how would you say, the consequences of our lifestyle, and
Because while we continue to pass those consequences
deal with them
on,
ourselves.
nothing will be done to actually change the problem. So we need to make sure we get to grips with that.
Right,
yeah.
exactly, and so it has led. For example, in Philadelphia, you've had headlines like this in local media: Philly is incinerating half of its recycling because they couldn't send, the China problem, so to speak, and it's partly your fault. So it created this awareness. There was an awareness in terms of people's practices.
Okay, let's get to the eagle you've been teasing me with. A photo of an eagle that's gone viral. Let's have a look.
All right, this was Steve Byro, a Canadian photographer. He took a photo of the eagle, who is called Bruce.
Bruce, look at him.
Bruce is pretty impressive looking creature. That was at the Canadian Raptor Conservatory. He put it up on Facebook and Instagram. It went completely viral, and he's kind of been very overwhelmed by the response. There was even a little video. I'll see if we can play it briefly, showing the moment that was captured in slow-mo.
Beautiful, isn't it?
And apparently Bruce has a mind of his own, Mark, and it took
I bet he does.
it took quite a few attempts to get the perfect shot. But there you go, a beautiful, beautiful moment, and I think, fair to say, a beautiful photograph.
Absolutely beautiful, beautiful bird.
Indeed.
James, thank you very much indeed. James
Mark.
Crew of the Media Watch. Thank